Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharat Kuttan.
Tonight on the show, we have the Deputy Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tan Sri Dr. James Jemut Masing. He's also the President of Parti Rakyat Sarawak, which is a component party of GPS. Tan Sri, good evening. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you on. Now, I would like to begin by asking you about the latest political developments at the federal level. The reported sacking of Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and 4 BERSATU MPs from the party. Now, as part of the PRIHATIN National plus GPS government, I'm wondering, is GPS concerned about the instability in Bersatu, which is of course the party of the Prime Minister?
Yes, we are equally concerned, but we cannot interfere into the internal affairs of Bersatu. That is very different, but it's most unfortunate. It's most unfortunate that such a drastic action has been taken into Mahathir and Mukhi. But as a member of GPS and a partner of PRIHATIN National, we are equally concerned because it might create instability in the politics of Malaysia.
Tan Sri, can I ask you if you believe that the Prime Minister still commands the majority of the House? And if so, what are his numbers?
Well, I hope that he commands the majority of the House. And I think it is up to elected representatives, the lawmakers of Malaysia, to ensure that he will command it, because that creates political stability. Political stability means economic stability for Malaysians.
Okay, so on the same kind of note as political stability, Tan Sri, I'm wondering, is GPS looking to formalize its relationship with PRIHATIN National?
Formalization only happens if PRIHATIN National is an entity. Yeah, I think it is not a legal entity per se. It is a loose combination of the communal parties. But in terms of association with them, we are together with PRIHATIN National. But formalization, you cannot formalize our association with them because PRIHATIN National is not a legal entity as it is for now. So you don't formalize with a non-existent entity. That we cannot do. But we will support them, and we will support Tan Sri Muhyiddin as the Prime Minister of Malaysia. That we will do. There's no question about it.
Tan Sri, there was this confusion over an MOU, apparently signed by or agreed upon by all the members of the PRIHATIN National plus GPS administration. The question is, there were some voices that said that in fact the Sarawakian stakeholders were not consulted. Could you give us some clarity on the MOU that the PRIHATIN National in fact signed?
And the MOU that was signed, in fact, is an endorsement of what the GPS have agreed when we decided to support Tan Sri Muhyiddin as the Prime Minister of Malaysia. That was decided way before the MOU was decided. It was an endorsement of what we decided before. That's all it was.
I see. Okay.
We have decided that we will support Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin as the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
So,
I think that is important.
So the question is, Tan Sri, what is it that the PRIHATIN National Government stands for in terms of policy, and what is it that GPS would like to see front and center in policy terms for this administration?
What PRIHATIN National, which were there, is to understand the needs and the desire of Sarawak government via GPS, and I think they do. I think among other things is that the Prime Minister of Malaysia has agreed and have a good discussion with Petronas. Remember that we demand the 5% SST, which Petronas have agreed, and I think that is I'm sure is with the input from the Prime Minister of Malaysia. That is good. That is to us a very good understanding between PRIHATIN National and GPS. And then second thing we need for them to understand is MA63, what was decided then. And I believe that Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin is very much aware of this, and he recognized the need for us. The needs for people there to understand MA specifically. And I believe he is in the mode of understanding that need.
Tan Sri, there are some concerns from observers about the way in which positions at GLCs are being given to MPs from Perikatan Nasional. I believe also, of course, from Sarawak, some parties there, part of GPS, have gained from becoming envoys with ministerial status. We have an envoy to China. We also have an envoy to the Far East. From the Malaysian perspective, I mean, is this a good thing, this kind of horse trading or kind of giving out of positions to in GLCs?
Horse trading is military and politics to ensure that there is political stability. That is important. And I think in any political organization that we must have a horse trading kind of thing to ensure that there is stability within the nation. And I think that Muhyiddin Yassin and Perikatan Nasional understand that and give some the opposition to us to ensure that we are recognized. And that is very important. Recognition of us as a partner of the government.
Tan Sri, you reiterated your support for Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. I'm just wondering if you could shed some light as to the current cooperation and communication between the federal government and the territory of Sarawak at this point in time.
And it's interesting to note that if there's any discussion, any new move by Perikatan Nasional, they are going to get in touch with us and contact our chief minister. No decision was made that we got Sarawak without consultation with the chief minister of Sarawak. That we are aware of, and of that we are very pleased. That there is such clear understanding. What needs to be discussed if it concerns Sarawak, GPS will be consulted, and they've been doing it the last few months.
Just a quick response from you. I know that you've already gone on record on the proposal from the Islamic Party, PAS, to ban alcohol sales across the Federation. Do you see a long-term problem with PAS? It's so ideologically opposed to both the politics and the cultural values of people in Sarawak.
No, I do not see a problem with PAS. I think PAS will try to enforce their policy. That to me is natural for a political party. But it is our duty, therefore, to tell them not to do it. Because Malaysia is a multiracial society, and it's multiracial, not only it's multi-religious, but PAS has the right to enforce what they want to do. It's our duty then to stop them from doing it, because that is not what Malaysia is all about. To me, PAS and the policy doesn't worry me that much.
All right, Tan Sri, we're going to ask you to stay on the line. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes and take a closer look at Sarawak's post-MCO plan, economic plan. So stay tuned to consider this. Hello, thank you for staying with Consider This. Melissa and Sharad here with you tonight. We're continuing our conversation with Deputy Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tan Sri James Jemut Masing. Now, I'd like to focus on how Sarawak is dealing with the economic fallout from the pandemic. Tan Sri, now, can you help us understand the damage done to Sarawak's economy so far from the MCO?
Yes, the damage to Sarawak economy, I think, is quite substantial in that sense, and we're trying to overcome it at the moment. And because of that, we had a meeting. The government had a meeting to decide post-COVID-19 active economic strategy till 2030. We have that. If you can see whether I have a map, I have a pie chart here. Inside here, it shows you what we need to improve after this. What are have to move forward in order to recover the economy of Sarawak. You can see there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 sectors of economy that we have to improve in order for us to overcome post-COVID-19.
Tan Sri, I want to ask you about Sarawak and its relationship or integration within the island of Borneo, Brunei, Sabah, and also, of course, Kalimantan, the state which is going to host the new capital of the Republic of Indonesia. That dynamic, is that also factored into the plans for a kind of post-MCO, kind of COVID world that we're going to live in?
We do. I think among the things that we do is we have to have renewable energy to be improved. We know that very well that we have our lines are now being sent. We have a line, transmission line to Kalimantan, Indonesia, by Sarawak Energy Berhad, and we're going to improve on that to allow for that connection, not only physical connection, but energy connection at the same time. And they are. And we are giving it to Indonesia now in anticipation of the new administrative sector.
Okay. All right. Well, you held up the chart to show us all the different sectors that you're going to be focused on to kickstart Sarawak's economy post-MCO or during this period. And I wanted to ask you about the PRIHATIN package, whether the PRIHATIN package from the federal level actually hit all the right marks when it came to providing relief for Sarawakians affected by the MCO and the pandemic, and whether that plan that you held up, there were gaps that you had to address from the PRIHATIN package in your Sarawakian economical plan.
Yes, we do. If anything that we learned from COVID-19 is environment and internet. So if we look at the center here, it's digital economy and environmental sustainability. These are the two sectors we need to improve to continue on what we are doing now. I think it's so important for Sarawak to be digitally connected. Second, that we must have to look into our environment. So because of this, to us, the continuation of what we're doing now, we must learn from what's happening now. Unless COVID-19 teaches us, among other things, is how to look at our environment and the importance of internet connection. Not only that is important, physical connection is not an issue, but cyber connection is very, very important in time of pandemic of this nature. We may have other problems later on, but without internet connection, we will have problems, especially Sarawak, because physical connection is quite difficult to do and it's very expensive. I believe that internet connection is slightly easier for us to deal with.
Tan Sri, what about things like the micro SME sector, the SME sector, the trade, the cross-border trade? There's a huge border with Kalimantan. What about that level of trade, which will in fact involve people in contact with each other?
At the moment, we are very, very particular about connection with the other side, with Kalimantan. That's why during this MOC, and also with COVID-19, we closed all of our border with Kalimantan. Because we closed there, the Kalimantan having problem. Those who are residing next to the border in Kalimantan are having problem with their food. And we have opened the 3 CIQ at the moment. They asked us to open it to allow us to bring in food stuff into the other side, which we did. I think this is the thing that we need to handle very carefully. We cannot allow the closing of our border at the same time force the supply of food into the other side, which we have done it now. I have opened 3 borders, CIQs, for us to get food into the other side, which we are doing now. And I think we must continue to do so. There must be trade between Kalimantan, Indonesia, and Malaysia via Sarawak border with Kalimantan. That we must continue to make.
How are you managing that, Tan Sri? You mentioned that you've opened some of the borders. How are you managing that, given that everything has to be, I guess, to observe all the new requirements to avoid the transmission of COVID?
Yeah, we did. I think we had a discussion with the Indonesian consulate, and they are very, very cooperative with us. I told them, because I'm in charge of the border post, so I said we would bring our goods across just by the border, and you must pick them from there, which they did. And I think we can do that, and with very stringent measure, so that as we bring in food to the other side, they do not transfer COVID-19 into this side. I think that's been handled, and we handle it very, very well with the cooperation of Indonesian consulate in Kuching.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a quick break. More with Deputy Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tan Sri James Masing, in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned to consider this. Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, with me Sharad Kutan. Let's continue our conversation with Deputy Chief Minister of Sarawak, Tan Sri Dr. James Jemut Masing. Tan Sri, now we are on the weekend in the eve, ahead of Gawai celebration on Monday. Can you tell us a little bit about how Gawai will be celebrated this year while observing social distancing?
This Gawai will be celebrated without visitation. So what it means, therefore, that the Gawai will be celebrated by the family only, within the family circles again. The visitation will not be allowed because we don't want to create a possibility of infection by people sitting for Gawai. So this year, 2020 will be a Gawai with the church. But the essence of Gawai Masing is still there. You see.
Tan Sri, how difficult has been the communications we had over this side of the Federation? A lot of, messages, the message was being sent out to a lot of Malaysians, and yet we had people violating them. What has been the biggest single challenge in convincing Sarawakians to observe social distancing at a time where people perhaps are looking for a return to community and family and the fun and the celebration, the festive feelings that we've missed over the last couple of months because of the MCO?
I think the Dayak community are very accommodating. They understand the need for us to have this health restriction. They understand that missing one Gawai will not spoil your Gawai mood, because missing one Gawai doesn't mean that you have no other Gawai from it. They have a lot of other Gawai. By coming in, if you come in and visit, it may enable COVID-19 to be spread, then that will be your last Gawai. They understand that. It is better to miss one Gawai than to miss the next few years of Gawai. I think the Dayak community understands it. Even though they're a bit angry, but I think they are particularly enough to know the need for this prohibition, for no visitation during this Gawai ceremony.
Tan Sri, of course, perhaps the situation in city centres, very much like urban centres in the peninsula, where people live in nuclear families, that approach might work. But what about rural Sarawak, where people live in long houses and people actually live in communal, homes? How does that work?
Most of the area in Pendalaman and rural areas are green. Therefore, within the long house, they will. I'm sure they will visit each other, but because they are green, there is no infection in that area. We are. That is why we are very strict. There are no visitors coming into this Gawai in the long houses, because the proximity of people living in long house will not stop COVID-19 to be spread if it happens. But thank God, most of the rural areas and longhouses are still green from the very beginning until today. And we want to keep it that way by stopping visitors from coming in. And I think they understand.
Well, taking into account some of the more cultural specific, Sarawak-specific cultural efforts that you've adopted in the fight against COVID-19, can you talk to us a little bit about what that's been like, the challenges in terms of not just stopping the transmission of the virus, but also in the distribution of aid? Sarawak is a vast territory and also geographically, quite dispersed, rural and urban areas. Has that been a challenge in getting to communities, distributing aid, getting information out there?
Yeah, it is a challenge in terms of distributing of aid, assistance. It is a challenge. But it is an advantage to us to stop COVID-19 from spreading into the rural areas. Thank God the inaccessibility into Sarawak also become inaccessibility for COVID-19 to spread to the longhouse. So this is the first time I find that accessibility become an advantage to people living in rural areas. And I hope that that advantage will not stay for too long, because I need to create accessibility to people living in longhouse.
Tan Sri, could you help us understand also the situation of frontliners, who have, of late been seen as kind of the heroes of modern Malaysia? The civil service has taken the lead in the campaign against the pandemic, and, many of us celebrate their efforts and their sacrifices. What are the specific needs of the frontliners in Sarawak's particular fight against the pandemic?
The frontliners in Sarawak are number one. They are real heroes and heroines in the fight against COVID-19. I'm very proud of them. And we as politicians and just a policy makers, they are the one that goes forward. In fact, the frontliners are the soldiers. We need to equip them and give them necessary weapons for them to go to the front. Today, I'm very proud of them. I can tell you that they have been very, very good job.
Okay. Well, speaking about the people that are at the forefront fighting against COVID-19, I want to ask about the role of Sarawak in protecting some of the more vulnerable groups. Perhaps the stateless in Sarawak, perhaps the ones that don't have access to healthcare. What is the government doing, the state government doing, to protect these vulnerable groups?
That's why we're doing. We are very strict in terms of MCO, the movement control order. We are very strict. That is part of the way to protect these vulnerable groups. And that's why we will not allow people to do visitation during Hari Raya, during Gawai. Because if we allow that, then the vulnerable group will be will be in big trouble because of it. I think that's one of the ways that we protect these vulnerable groups. By not allowing them to move forward. To us, freedom of movement is not an exercise of stopping people from moving around. It is a freedom of movement is to stop people from infecting the vulnerable group. I think it's part of the government policy, which is correct, which our government done very well in this issue.
All right. Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for speaking with us tonight. It's been a pleasure, and thank you for taking the time to share your insights. And also, selamat Gawai to you on Monday. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharakat in signing off for this evening.
We want to wish everyone happy Keamatan and happy Gawai to everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, folks. Good night.